and worship is about welcome. Welcome not only that we get to welcome somebody else, but actually we're welcomed in God's presence. And that is such a huge thing. That worship is about being face to face with God. Finding that even though there's every reason why He should shun us, He should say, you are not good enough. Instead, He makes every door open and He welcomes us. It is an incredible privilege to be in God's presence and together. Not just for a Sunday, not just one day out of the 7, but to live like this. And this kind of gathered worship gives us a lot of equipping, a lot of experience, a lot of help and encouragement to live like that. We're talking about worship today in the setting where we're going through one of the Psalms. And the Psalms, there's so many of the Psalms that talk about worship. Psalm is our kind of worship textbook. It has been throughout the church's history. If you realize, there were times in the church's history where you could not make a song except use the language of the Psalms. They would persecute you. The church would bring discipline on you because that's how they understood how central it was to understand, how do you worship? That worship is not something that you just pour out your feelings and your thoughts. There is spontaneity. There is creativity. But there's an interesting way where you're led to worship. Worship is not about how you want to express to God. It's God inviting you to express your heart through this kind of pattern, this kind of way of worship. In the Old Testament, worship wasn't done because you just felt like it whenever you wanted, however you wanted, but God said, this is the way you get to worship. We're going to go through Psalm 95 today, and Psalm 95 walks us through some of the, almost a pattern, a flow of worship. How do you worship God together? That's the name of the sermon, worship together. In fact, there is a way of doing it. There's a wrong way, and there's a right way. The together part is a huge part of that. I'm going to walk through Psalm 95 today and try to get a sense of, well, if worship is not what we think it is, right? I want to sing the songs that I like, I want to express my heart, or I only come during this part of the service when actually I'm more comfortable, so on and so forth. But it gives us a leading, it's almost a call saying, this is what you must do. This is what it looks like to worship. And these are the reasons why. And we can grow together as worshipers. Well, this psalm's interesting because there are a lot of threes in this psalm. As many times you see, structure is important. We're going to go through the whole psalm. A lot of people, when they preach through Psalm 95, they stop at the end of, right in the middle of verse 7. They don't do the last part. Kind of like when we did the Psalm 139, we went through the whole psalm, including the parts that didn't make much sense. And I'm going to encourage us as not only a worshiping community, but as a community that really honors and pays attention to the scriptures. We want to let the scriptures say what they want to say, and then wrestle with it. Don't just cut out portions that we like. We want to let God say what He wants to say. He's the leader. He's the shepherd. And then we'll be finding that there's something really important. We gain so much when we follow the whole part of the scripture. So there are a lot of threes in the book of Psalm, and I put this up to help us to follow along the way. If you look here in the English translation, you'll see there's 3. Come and let us sing aloud, shout aloud to the Lord our God, our rock. Come, let us give our thanksgiving to Him. Come, let us kneel down and bow down and worship, right? So there's 3 comes. And these come languages, inviting, bidding you, step, get up out of your seat, move, come. But there's also, in many ways, there's 2 sections in this scripture, but I'm going to actually shift it around saying there's 3 different ways that we're called to worship here. 3 different ways that we need to pay attention as we go through this whole psalm. And I'm going to use those 3, the blue buttons here, as a way of helping us understand what are the 3 that I see that I want to share. What does it look like as we're called to worship? So the first one, I put it as, let's get loud. Yeah. Get loud. Yes, because that's actually what worship is. And this is something that some of our traditions don't know. If you were born in a very conservative tradition, you're supposed to be really stoic, and you have your suit on and your tie, and just everybody's calm. Anybody says something, shh, right? I didn't really mean that, by the way. It's okay, you can talk. Yeah. All the kids would. Yeah. The power of the microphone. But no, worship at the start, in the authentic version of this, the book of Psalms says, get loud. Isn't that interesting? This translation doesn't help us. It says, come, let us sing for joy. Let us shout aloud. The words used here are, if you look carefully in the original language, they are the same words used to describe a war cry. Okay? My generation, we grew up on Braveheart. And then they're warning, as they're fighting, and when they win, they're like, ah! They put everything they have, because in a war cry, it sensitizes you. You get your heart rate up, and when you hear everybody around you screaming and getting ready for the fight, you get courage. Yeah. There's something powerful about a war cry. Now, when was the last time you've been in a sword fight? When was the last time you've been in a battle against, heavy cavalry? We don't have that in our culture, but we do know what it looks like to have a war cry in the context of football, right? If you stay at home and watch, maybe you've got some very rowdy friends who are watching with you, but if you go to the stadium, and a stadium like this is Quest Field in Seattle, one of the loudest places where they have a football game. It is deafening, can I tell you? We went, my wife and I, we went during the summertime, and they were just playing a preseason game. Okay? This is a preseason game. It's sold out. Okay? This is not even a real game. This is like practice, pretty much. And this is not even a team that we hate. This is just a normal team, Chicago Bears. But I can give you a little sense of 10 seconds of the sound. Okay? I had to cut it off because then it went to show my wife screaming and shouting. But that's what you do. And you get in there, and every time, there's a reason why you do, by the way. You do it because the other team, you're trying to distract the other team when they're on offense so that their quarterback can't tell all of his own team what to do. Can't give any audibles. They have to just go with a very simple offensive set because the crowd is so loud. In fact, Seattle registered as the loudest stadium, the loudest, 136.6 decibels. Just for you to realize, a thunderclap, kaboom, is 120 decibels. Okay, if you're sitting right as the jet's taking off, that's 150. So it's in between a thunderclap and the jet takeoff. All right, that's loud. You would actually, if you were sitting in here in this kind of setting for too often, you would lose your hearing. And in fact, I was screaming up top of my lungs, I couldn't hear myself. That's actually described in these words. Sing, shout aloud, get a war cry going. Okay? That this is not simply you do something just because it's kind of fun. Hey, let's see how loud we can get. There's a reason. Okay? Soldiers cry like that, they shout for a reason. It emboldens them. It gets them ready. It reminds them of the people around you. Okay? Anybody watch the movie 300, and only 300 of them are going to war, and as the king turns around and says, Spartans, everybody goes, oh, 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 right? There's 300 of them, but you feel this, oh my gosh, the strength coming, because you are together. You are together in purpose. You are together in worship. That's the first one. Get loud. Okay? I want to continue on. This stadium got so loud during one of the playoff games when this guy, Marshawn Lynch, had this incredible run. In fact, it was seismic. The city of Seattle downtown was showing seismic activity. His name is Beast. He called Beast Mode, and they called it the Beastquake. Right? This is how loud, 60,000, 50,000 people can be. You have no idea how loud it can be, how powerful it is when we raise up our voices in one accord, for one purpose, in response to the one God. There's something so powerful in this kind of, corporate worship that I don't care how beautiful your individual worship can be in your own car with your own, iPod on. Something about what we were made to be, to worship together, not just in loudness, but in passion. And we're bringing everything that we have. It is so wonderful. It is so beautiful. And I feel like our generation is kind of missing out. Now, there's a reason why we get loud. It's not just because we want to get loud. It's not just because a pastor is screaming in your ear, get loud, right? It's It's because there's a reason why. Well, just to keep going on the same thread. You know that the Seattle doesn't have the loudest stadium anymore because the Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs decided, oh, no, we want the record. We're going to be the loudest. But you know what? That record, 136, was made during a game. During halftime, the announcer said, come on guys, let's get the record, right? And they basically said, scream, 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 for no other purpose than to get the record, right? And we're kind of poo-pooing this team because they just want the record. We do it all the time because there's a reason. Not only we are identified with our team and we're actually called 12th man, right? Well, this song helps us understand there's a reason why you get loud. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song. Because it means there's something happening in worship. You're coming into God's presence. There is a personal facing off, a face-to-face. You are coming to meet this God who is so good. You have reasons. He's been so good to you. There's thanksgiving that's bubbling up in your soul. You realize that you would not be here if it wasn't for him. You would not have any hope if it wasn't for him. He is so good, and he's the one that you love so much. You really believe in him. And so you come, and you're excited. You want to bring all your joy and your passion. Worship is about FaceTime. I'm not talking about the app, right? I'm talking about you're face-to-face with God. That's the language of come before him. You get to be in God's face. You know, some of the songs that we sing, we don't say, God is great. We sing, God, you are great. Your love. Okay? Those words are reminding us we're talking to who? We're in whose presence? Who are we engaging? And the person that we're talking to is not just some figment of our imagination. He is a great king. The Lord is the great God, the great king above all gods. Okay? He is incredible in what he does and who he is. If you've ever, we don't have this idea of, oh my gosh, I get to come before the king, right? But some of us, some of us have met celebrities, and it's like, you get all giddy, like, ooh, it's just a person. But they have incredible influence, and they're so important to you that all of a sudden you get excited. People scream when they encounter somebody, like a celebrity or an athlete, or somebody famous that they love, they idolize. Well, guess what? This is what it looks like to come to God's presence. We get to come directly into his presence. He is a great king. This is what we know. In his hand are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. What's he saying? He is the maker of everything, seen and unseen. Do you know how much power and intelligence and wisdom it takes, okay, to make this? I'm not talking about an iPhone. I'm talking about the cosmos. That's who we are coming into the presence of. He is that powerful. He speaks it into existence. Often we get kind of dulled because if you do this every week, or if you grow up in a church setting, sometimes this is not the most beautiful environment, and we don't have the fog lamps, we have the lights, and we don't have all of the special effects to kind of help us to realize something special is going on. And sometimes we get dulled. We get dulled by our daily life. We get dulled by again and again and again, and we don't realize how incredibly beautiful the place that we are, the person that we're here to see. There's one guy actually in a blog described as kind of using it as a metaphor, saying, if you are a nature lover, there's a few places that you must go. One of them is Yosemite. I had a chance to go to Yosemite. Oh my gosh, jaw-dropping sights. The most incredible, there's this one rock that comes right straight out of the ground for thousands of feet. It is the largest structure of one piece of granite in the world. It's called El Capitan. And I was really looking forward to seeing it. In fact, it happened too quick, and I was like, oh, what's that? Oh my gosh, it's right there! It shocked me. Because you come in through the gate and through the tunnel, and it's just right smack in your face. You're like, I wasn't even ready for it. But a lot of people, when they come into Yosemite, don't realize, because they come in a time of fog. Okay? Imagine yourself coming into Yosemite, you're kind of excited to see this. Oh, Pastor Martin said Yosemite's incredible. He said El Capitan is a big thing. And you're like, I can't see anything. There's just fog. I don't see anything. Now you can just pass and say, whatever. Or you can wait, because if you know that if you just let the fog dissipate, And this is what you would see. This grand, amazing, nothing in the world is like this. And if actually you go to Yosemite, the mountains are just hard to be described. Yeah. Kind of like if you go to Grand Canyon. We went to all these different small canyons, Red Canyon and Bryce Canyon, and we're like, oh, we screwed ourselves because, if you go to a Grand Canyon first, you're like, oh. But if you go to all these canyons, how grand can it be? And we were just shocked how incredibly beautiful Grand Canyon really is. If you would stay in the presence of God, let that fog of familiarity, that fog of pride, that fog of, oh, I want to do what I want to do, I want to get what I want to get. If you would just let God speak to you, talk to you, engage you, you begin to see the beauty of the one who you're coming to see through the eyes of your spirit. You get to feel his presence, and you come into a sense of awe. You come into a sense of great joy. That heaviness is lifted off. Isn't it interesting in the book of Psalms? Often you'll see stuff like, I was so stuck, I was so frustrated because I saw all these wicked people getting their way, and it didn't seem like God was God. It didn't seem like he was powerful. Until I came to the temple, to his house, and to his presence. Then I understood, then I saw. There's something powerful about coming into God's presence, meeting him face to face as we're led together, as we worship together. So the first thing that we're called to worship is, get loud, because God is great. And as we shout it, as we express it in song, and also as we shout, okay, you can shout, by the way. That's good to shout, whether it's while we're singing or while I'm preaching. As we shout it, it's such a powerful, encouraging thing, even for others. The second call to worship in this psalm we see is, I'm using the language, get low. Okay? Don't just get loud. There's an interesting shift in verse 6. It starts off, sing, shout aloud to the rock, our Savior, deliverer, right? Well, in verse 6 it says, come, let us bow down in worship. Let us kneel before the Lord our God. At first you get the scene of somebody lifting up their hands and gathering all of their energy. Oh! But this one is different. They're down on the ground. Those three phrases here, these three words, bow down, worship, and kneel, are the same kind of thing. You're humbling yourself. Okay? You're bowing down in reverence and honor. The word worship, by the way, the word picture for word worship is face down. Did you know that? So 3 times in this verse it's saying, you come, let us. There's a call to worship. Come. Let us bow down. Let us be face down. Let us kneel before the Lord. Because this is what worship is. It is a celebration, but it's also an expression of loyalty and humility. It's a way of saying, I am not God. I am not Lord. I choose to submit. I choose to trust. I choose to honor the one who is greater. If you don't know this, and if you don't live this, and if you're not led into this kind of worship, you're not worshiping. Okay? That's not what worship is. Yes, get loud is part of it. In fact, this is the heart of what worship is. It's interesting, a lot of scholars try to place this psalm. They're wondering, why is this here? It sounds interesting because it is a public call. Come, let us sing and shout aloud. Come, let us bow down, kneel, and worship. There are sections here where actually this was used as a liturgy. As the people of God would gather, the priests or the prophet would say this, and this would be a way of them moving through the temple, starting from the courts. They would sing and they would shout, and they would come and with thanksgiving. But as they are moving to the place of the sacrifice table, it gets kind of solemn. Raucous energy and noise gives way to reverence, quiet, and stillness. Because you're saying, God, something beautiful, powerful is happening here. I'm coming face to face. And when you come face to face with God, you cannot come with your head lifted high like you're somebody. You have to come like this. There's a call to submit, to bow down. Put all of your heart in trust to God. And He is worthy of that trust. There's a reason why we get to bow down. And it's not because he is so strong and so mighty, and if you get him angry, he's going to pummel you to the ground. What is the reason given why we get to bow down, why we should? Because he's our God. We are the people of his pasture, the flock under his care. Isn't that beautiful? The reason why we get to submit is because he is a caring, loving shepherd. We talked about this last week. Who's planning for us, preparing for us, providing for us, protecting us. This is what it means to be led well. You're not led by somebody who's demanding and screaming and shouting and saying, just do what I say, because I said it. We are led by a God who is humble, gracious, kind, and takes care of us and walks with us. When you realize this, you find that there is nothing else compared to walking with a God in worship like this. In joy, but also in humility. Judson Cornwell, he's a writer for Leadership magazine. He wrote this. He said, worship helps us find who we are. Okay, we're made by him. And why God has placed us here on earth. As you worship, you come face to face with God. You actually talk with him. He begins to reveal things. You begin to understand, this is what I was made for. Then he says, when we bow in God's presence with worship, only then are we made complete. There's something missing when worship, corporate worship, is not kind of something in our life. Something missing. And some people talk about that. If you miss a Sunday, you miss a time of praise, you miss a time where you're gathered, something's off. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before. Something's not quite right. Yeah. Without this function of meeting God together, guess what? There's an incompleteness. You don't have the strength that you can actually really have. You don't have the hope. You don't have the experience and the truth of God pummeling your heart into grace. You don't experience that as much. This is a part of God's plan of nurturing us, nourishing us, leading us through worship. That is both loud and it's also a place where we get low. And I like that language that God uses here to say, worship is not simply just about you and God, you and God. Because if you look in this passage in Psalm 95, it is a constantly you plural. Okay? Your hearts, okay? Your needs. It's a description of plural. It says, today, if only you, plural, would hear his voice. Okay? And I think there's something about here that worship, it means we get to learn how to be led by the shepherd together. Remember last week we talked about the shepherd, calling out individual names and how personal he is. But there's something that, guess what? If you're a part of a flock, and he is God and he is taking care of his flock, then what it means is we have to learn how to be led together. I think this is something that our generation really is struggling with. We think that we are smart, we have education, we have all these opportunities, we're very savvy in the world and technology. The one thing we do not have, we do not know how to be led together. Some of us have incredible personal experience with God, but we can't stay in a worshiping together environment. It's just too weird. It's taxing. We're not used to it and we don't like it. But guess what? There's only one way to worship. There's only one way to be truly led. That's to be led together. And when we're in corporate worship together, something happens. We learn how to listen to God's voice together, even as a church, even as a body of Christ. So the first one was, what are we called to worship? We're called to get loud. Second one was, we're called to get low together. The third, and I'm using my own language here, is saying, called to stay soft. Because it doesn't say, come, let us, in this next few verses. But if you pay attention, there's a strange warning here. There is a call. There's a be careful, watch out that happens here. Verse 8. Do not harden your hearts as you did at Meribah, as you did that day at Massah. Remember, it starts off with, today, if you would only hear his voice. do not harden your hearts. Imagine the people of God have come through the courts and are right at the table and the sacrifice is being made, and they're realizing they're coming into God's presence. What is he saying? Watch out. This is the third call to worship in this psalm. Because in fact, you can go through those steps and you can actually, if you're not careful, you can do what other people have done. Not take worship seriously, not take God seriously. You can actually go through the motions and end up in a place where you are following God because you have to, but in fact, your hearts are not right with God. Your hearts are not soft. It says, do not harden your hearts. This is what it's saying. We actually have some responsibility of our own hearts before God. We can soften it, even in submission and bowing down, or we can even harden it. We can think to ourselves. We can make choices in such a way where God is not the one that is our leader. God is not the one who is providing for us. In fact, there is an unbelief. We're staying in the fall. We're not responding to Him. And the psalmist brings up two situations where the people of God in the Old Testament did this very thing. When they came to God and it was a time to trust Him, they just refused to. Okay? These two places, in Meribah and Massah. Okay? And those places are places where they were thirsty for days. And they were so angry. They're like, God, why did you bring us here? And it's being referenced here in this psalm. When your ancestors tested me, they tried me, even though they had seen what I did. God did this incredible stuff for people of God. The 10 plagues, He brought them through the ocean. He wiped out Pharaoh and his army. And He did all these incredible things. And you know what? They didn't care. It was nothing to them. So here's what it looks like in the Brick Bible. In Exodus 17. They're traveling through the desert, and God's leading them. They're just following, but as they're following, there's no water. Okay? And so they get really angry. And they get angry not at Moses alone, but at God. Remember, He took it personally. He says, you're testing me. Why did you bring us out of Egypt only to make us and our children and our livestock die of thirst? Okay? And so Moses is frustrated and like, God, what am I supposed to do? And God tells him, Moses says, how am I supposed to do this? Your people they're crazy. They're testing you and me. At any moment, they're going to stone me. This is God's response. Go ahead of the people. Take the staff that you stretched out over the river. This language is of the Red Sea, by the way. And I will be waiting there for you on this rock. Strike the rock, and water will come out for the people to drink. And this is Exodus 17, verse 6. This is what Moses did. This is the Brick Bible. Right? It's a great Bible, by the way. And so it's telling a story that there was a time at Meribah where the people of God, having seen all of God's power, they're so angry. They turned on Him. Not in worship, but they hardened their hearts, just like Pharaoh did. Okay? They rejected Him. They loathed Him. And in fact, even then, what did God do? He took care of them. Now, if somebody comes and slaps you in the face and says, give me all your money, right? And just really bad to you. This is your child, by the way. Really bad to you after you've done all these great things to them. You'd be like, well, if that's going to be the way you're going to handle it, forget you. But instead, God does a miracle. He says, Moses, hit this rock, water will come out. I would love that, by the way. You're hiking in the mountains and you're thirsty. Smack. You've been traveling for 2 days, out in the wilderness. There's no oasis. Smack, water comes out. Well, we find that this is not the only time that God did this. The way the rabbis interpreted this was, until the end of the 40 years, every time they didn't have water, what did Moses have to do? Smack a rock. Later on, God even told Moses, when he was even more frustrated, don't smack the rock, just talk to the rock. Don't hit it, just talk to it. Calm down, Moses, right? I'm this gracious. I've been doing this the whole time, and they still, even after they see it time and time again, they still won't worship me. Just talk to the rock. And that's what the story is. And yet, guess what? They hardened their hearts. Sometimes we're like that. God is so good. He comes through every single time. But sometimes something will happen, and you'll be like, oh, I just can't trust him. He might ask something of you, and How dare he ask me to do this? You get distracted, something else important comes up. Oh, I have to go to church, I have to worship. I don't feel like it. Isn't it interesting? There is the battle to have your heart in a worship zone, to worship God regularly. That's the battle to be in relationship with God. So this is the third call. Watch out. Keep your heart soft. And I think it's such a privilege it is to come and gather together and worship. You don't realize. You can take it so not seriously. This is for me. When I am able, when I want to. But actually, if you make worship someplace that you're called into because God is asking you, you shout for joy and you get low, bow down. God will meet you. God will strengthen you. God will keep you. Interestingly enough, the people of God, when they were in the biggest trouble, when they were persecuted, what are they told to do? Hebrews 3-4 goes through this exact psalm and says, this was for you. When you have a period of time where you're not sure if God's there for you, this is what you're supposed to do. Trust Him, worship Him, respond to His voice. And he says, see to it, brothers and sisters, that none of you have a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. But encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. What is he saying? The people of God, they didn't do anything bad. They're being persecuted. And what is he saying? Guess what? The very feeling or the heart of doubt and unbelief in itself is sin. The refusal to worship in trust and submission, that is sin. So he's saying, you need to have your brothers and sisters encourage you. You need to gather. Don't give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, all the more as you see the day. What is he saying? The call to worship together is for the very people who are struggling with your worship to God. When you don't feel like worshiping, that's when you need it the most. When you are tempted to take worship and God not seriously, that's when you are needed to come and to be called to experience God the most. And there is a strong warning at the end of this. We're almost done. 40 years I was angry with that generation. I said, there are people whose hearts go astray. They have not known my way, so I declared an oath in my anger. They shall never enter my rest. Be aware that these people, they did this to God again and again and again. 10 times they rebelled against Him. That 10th time, like the 10th plague, demonstrated, no matter what, like Pharaoh, they would never, ever repent. God would never be their God. What are you saying? When we take God callously, again and again and again, something happens. Our hearts harden. Worship is a means that God gives us to be strengthened, to be encouraged, to be brought soft, and stay with God. If we don't have these corporate times, guess what? We are in grave danger. Because there's so much out there that can harden our hearts, that we can choose to harden our hearts with. So this is the call. You know, I'm so thankful for my dad. This is my last story. You know, my dad was not a perfect man. He was a gracious man. He was a good man. I'm so thankful for him. But one of the things that I realized was such a gift was, no matter what, we worshiped. I don't know why, but he would always go to the church like an hour drive away from our house. I'd be like, Dad, why do we have to drive so long? And he would just like, just do what I say, right? And he would never explain it. But later on I realized it's because he was following God's call. But we were living in Chicago, and in Chicago sometimes a lot of snow comes down, kind of like in New York. There'd be days where actually so much snow came down, the roads were barely passable. Guess what? An hour journey, we would leave 2.5 hours earlier. He was a choir director. And he would show up. I don't care what Sunday it was. I don't care how bad the week was, how scared he was that we wouldn't make our mortgage. He would be leading worship, calling people into worship. And I just thought, that's just my dad. But I'm so thankful that that's the model he gave me. That even when we were tired, we could get any sleep, even though we were so stressed out, even though, his greatest passion is fishing. He would rather fish than spend time with us. That's almost what it felt like. But he deprioritized fishing. He never missed a day of work. And that was such a gift. I would not be who I am if it wasn't for that. I want our people, our children, the next generations to know what it looks like. Okay? That when we're tempted to have our hearts hardened, guess what? We throw ourselves, we respond to the call to worship. Bow your head.